Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Watchtower Examination. The Jehovah's Witness organization is in the news again for sexual abuse of children again. Only this time it is not fresh allegations. It stems from the 9 men who were charged with sexually abusing children in Pennsylvania between October and February, October last year and February 2023. The question is, why then is the organization freshly in the news regarding the same matter? As it turned out, it is being revealed now that this time is not only the 9 men, but there is fresh focus on the Watchtower organization being under probe by the Pennsylvania grand jury. It is pretty interesting that the AP, the Associated Press, brought an article on April 19. It was carried, the very same article was carried by Fox News, by ABC News, by CTV News. Rather interesting. I will give you the full article and share my thoughts on it.
York Haven, Pennsylvania. Associated Press. A Pennsylvania grand jury in recent months accused 9 men with connections to the Jehovah's Witnesses of child sexual abuse in what some consider the nation's most comprehensive investigation yet into abuse within the faith. The sets of charges, filed in October and February, have fueled speculation the jury may make public more about what it has uncovered from a 4-year investigation. A similar grand jury investigation into child sexual abuse by Catholic priests culminated in a lengthy 2018 report that concluded hundreds of priests had abused children in Pennsylvania over 7 decades, and church officials had covered it up, and more recently, a similar report was issued in Maryland. But documents made public so far include nothing about what critics have long maintained has been a systemic cover-up and mishandling of child molestation within the Jehovah's Witnesses. Pennsylvania Attorney General Michelle Henry, at a news conference in February announcing charges, said some of the defendants even used their faith communities to prey upon the victims. Asked whether her office was looking into the Jehovah's Witnesses as an organization, Henry replied it was an ongoing investigation. Critics say church elders have treated child sexual abuse as a sin rather than a crime, carefully documenting cases in internal files, but not reporting allegations to authorities, and sometimes letting the accused remain active in their congregations, with access to children from unsuspecting families. Critics also say the church has often required a second witness for complaints, a standard that can be impossible to meet in cases of molestation. Church spokesman Jared Lopez said otherwise, that the church does recognize abuse as a crime and that members have the right to report sexual assault to authorities. He said the second witness rule applies only to internal church discipline and that elders comply with reporting laws, even when there is not a second witness.
Now, those who know the organization, especially victims who have been there, who have been hurt, who saw the cover-up, who sees exactly how the organization has hurt them, would be a little annoyed with this statement coming from Mr. Lopez. But actually, he is speaking the truth. The Watchtower organization does see sexual abuse of children as a crime. And it is true that they do allow for people to report. But there is a but. Stick a pin. It will come up again.
The grand jury probe began with a referral from a county district attorney who believed the state's greater resources were needed. Dozens of witnesses have testified before the secret grand jury in Harrisburg or provided information to the Attorney General's office, and some report that investigators have exhibited keen interest in how the church has responded to molestation allegations. they were very interested in, not only individual cases, but in systemic concerns regarding the reporting of child abuse, said Mark O'Donnell of Parkville, Maryland, a former church member who said he appeared twice before the grand jury.
And that is the point. That is what I believe this article is about. The situation, the focus right now is on the organization. Mark O'Donnell has been before the grand jury, as the report said, and as I stated in a previous video, and he has stated on his website, he has been before the grand jury. And he reported that when he went there, he noticed that there were charts that the people had. And on that chart was the focus of the structure of the Watchtower organization and governing body was highlighted. So now we see O'Donnell telling us that the focus is really on the organization. So it's not now about the 9 men being charged, but their charge has led to the grand jury looking into what so many persons were hoping would actually happen, looking into the organization. From O'Donnell, we moved to another ex-Jehovah's Witness.
Martin Haw, of York Haven, Pennsylvania, a former elder who left the church in 2016, said he has spoken for hours to investigators, both inside and outside of the grand jury proceedings, about the structure of the denomination and how it handles cases of child abuse. Haw said he also testified about how his daughter was molested at his congregation in 2005, and that he later learned that elders knew the perpetrator had a history of abuse when he joined the congregation, but didn't warn parents. He said he didn't report the abuse to authorities. Haw said elders told him he could report it but asked, "Do you really want to bring reproach on Jehovah's name?" When Haw became an elder, he said, he learned of 4 other cases in his congregation that members weren't alerted about.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I asked you to stick a pin with. That is the point. Notice that he was told that he can report. Of course they can report. Of course they have a right to report. Of course it is their constitutional duty to protect their children and report. The Watchtower cannot take that from them, and so they can report. But they tell them, and that is the problem. They put Jehovah's Witnesses under a guilt trip if they report, because they would be bringing reproach upon Jehovah's name. So sure, you can report it, but do you want to be the one to bring reproach on Jehovah's name? And that is the problem. So when Lopez is making a response that Jehovah's Witnesses are allowed to report, he is speaking the truth. When he said that they do see it as a crime, he is speaking the truth. They see it as a crime being committed, but they discourage Jehovah's Witnesses from reporting, putting them on the guilt trip that they will be responsible for bringing reproach on Jehovah's name. And so Jehovah's Witnesses feel pressured not to report, and that is the fact.
Haw said to his knowledge, this is the first time an investigation of Jehovah's Witnesses has been done on this scale in any U.S. state. Haw said he's been in regular contact with investigators from Henry's office, most recently in March.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is music to my ears. As recent as March, Henry's office has been in touch with this gentleman. Who is Henry? Acting Attorney General. The investigation is ripe. The investigation is ongoing. And this organization, the governing body, the Watchtower organization, is under probe.
Attorney Matt Haverstick confirmed recently that his law firm is representing Jehovah's Witnesses congregations around Pennsylvania on unspecified matters that are very active right now. I would say if the only place you're looking for records of child sexual abuse is with one organization, then of course all the prosecutions that come are going to be about that one organization, Haverstick said. There's nothing unique or particular about this faith that makes it prone to any kind of misconduct, he said. The International Christian denomination, founded in the Pittsburgh area more than a century ago, and headquartered in New York State, claims 8.7 million members worldwide, including 1.2 million in the United States. Members will not bear arms, salute a national flag, or participate in secular politics. Believers are known for their evangelistic efforts, including knocking on doors and distributing literature in public spaces. In the Pennsylvania cases, court records state all 9 defendants have ties to the Jehovah's Witnesses faith, although, in some cases, it's unclear how that might relate to the criminal allegations. Defense lawyer Dan Kiss of Altoona, Pennsylvania, said his client, Robert Ostrander, 57, of Windsor, New York, knew nothing about the investigation before he was charged in October with indecent assault, corruption of minors and other offenses. The grand jury presentment accused him of abusing 2 girls in the Johnstown, Pennsylvania area by groping them, sometimes in the guise of wrestling. He spent more than a month in jail before making bail. Kiss said Ostrander denies all the allegations.
Now, let me make this very clear. I am a firm believer in what I consider the sacred principle that a man is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So as far as I'm concerned, I presume this man innocent. Every man is entitled to his reputation. It is possible that he is not guilty of the charges. And if he is not guilty, then his reputation is being dragged in the mud, and that would be unfortunate. So I want to say to all viewers, however hurt you are, however strongly you feel about the situation, the man is not a convicted criminal. He is an accused, and anybody can be accused of a crime. However, to say that you are unaware of an investigation is no big deal. If I am committing a crime and I am being investigated, it doesn't matter that I know that I'm being investigated. As a matter of fact, it might be in my interest that I do not know that I'm being investigated while I'm being investigated. So that is really no argument. And we're going to find out something that I deem quite pathetic coming up.
Honestly, this appears to be some sort of attack on their religion, Kiss said. You have all these Jehovah's Witnesses getting charged with some sort of inappropriate behavior. I'm hoping that this is not the Attorney General's office piling on due to their religious beliefs.
I really do hope, for the sake of the accused, that this is not the defense that this lawyer is going to take to court. Because this is empty. I'm embarrassed to see this coming from an attorney. This man was not charged by the district attorney's office. We need to understand what a grand jury is. It is citizens in his state who have looked on the evidence and decided to bring an indictment against him. And to come up with this flimsy excuse about it seems as though they are being persecuted, which is the same nonsensical argument that Jehovah's Witnesses are using. Christ never told anybody that they would be persecuted for sexually abusing children. And this is a pretty lame argument coming from a lawyer.
In response, Brett Hambright, a spokesperson for the state attorney general's office, said the charging documents articulate incidents where defendants used their positions of authority within Jehovah's Witnesses congregations to build trust with children who they later abused.
Thank you.
Current Pennsylvania law mandates that clergy and other spiritual leaders report suspicions of child abuse that arise in the course of their work. but the law also provides for exceptions when spiritual leaders learn about abuse through confidential communications, such as confession to a Catholic priest. Defining when such exceptions apply has been a matter of dispute, particularly when more than one spiritual leader is involved. Under the structure of the Jehovah's Witnesses faith, all baptized members are considered ordained ministers. Groups of a half dozen or more elders make many decisions, and elders field confessions of sin at the local congregation level. Jehovah's Witnesses have long expressed concerns about the evolving legal standards for reporting child abuse in Pennsylvania. In 1998, a lawyer with the church's national headquarters wrote the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, asking if there was legal duty to report if the victim is a mentally incompetent adult, an adult who was a child when abuse took place, a minor who was married at the time of the abuse, or a now married minor who was not married when victimized.
A minor who was married at the time? A minor who is now married? In Pennsylvania, I did my research. There is no exception to the law. The legal age for marriage is 18. And by no exception to the law, it means not even with parental consent can a minor get married. So I'm not understanding what is going on here. What is this person asking? How can a minor be married? Well, I know that in some states they can with parental consent. But this is Pennsylvania we're dealing with. What is he asking? I suppose it's a general statement regarding other states. But even if the state does allow for minors to be married, I really don't believe a religious organization should ever approve it.
The church's lawyer also wanted to know if ministers have to report if a victim comes to them in confidence, when a relative of the abuser or victim confides to the minister, or when the person telling a minister about abuse is not related to the victim or abuser. A lawyer in the Attorney General's office wrote back to say it can only give legal advice to the governor or an agency head.
No, this is quite odd. They are basically going to the prosecutors to ask for legal advice. That doesn't happen. You can't be going to the AG's office to advise you legally. And it is so odd because the Watchtower organization has a team of lawyers. They have a legal department. So it is for your lawyers to look into the state law and advise you. So I have to wonder too if these elders are going against the Watchtower organization in writing to the AG's office. Is it something that the governing body has instructed them to do? Because if they did, that would be rather odd.
More recently, after an Amish bishop in Lancaster County was charged with misdemeanor counts of failing to properly report suspected abuse, allegations for which he subsequently entered a program for first-time, nonviolent offenders, a Jehovah's Witnesses congregation in Philadelphia hired Haverstick's law firm to seek clarity about its elders' legal obligations. The 140-member Ivy Hill congregation sued Pennsylvania's Department of Human Services, asking Commonwealth Court to clarify whether elders are mandated reporters if they learn of child abuse through a confidential confession. Human Services runs the state's child line abuse hotline.
Is this report accurate? Can a local Jehovah's Witness congregation take up a lawsuit against, really? This is just too strange. Because if you want to get legal advice, why are you suing, as it were, Satan's organization to give you the legal advice when you have a legal department? It is just so weird.
Only elders can hear confessions of serious sins, and breaking the secrecy of a confession could result in their removal as an elder and undermine their relationship with God and credibility within the congregation, the Ivy Hill congregation argued, in appealing the case's dismissal to the state Supreme Court. Haverstick said Ivy Hill's concerns were not prompted by any unreported abuse within the congregation.
Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? This is official position of the Watchtower presented in court. Listen again. Only elders can hear confessions of serious sins, and breaking the secrecy of a confession could result in their removal as an elder. And this part is interesting. Undermine their relationship with God. So God is going to be, do you see what they're attributing to God? God is going to be upset with an elder if he were to reveal what he was told in confidence about the sexual abuse of a child. Jesus said that one who hurts a child is going to be severely punished. But they believe that if they cover up the abuse of a child, they will be in favor with God. How absolutely abominable.
In all 50 states, the Jehovah's Witnesses have gone to their relevant attorney general's offices to ask for clarification for the reporting obligations for ministers of the faith, their elders, Haverstick said. For the most part, like in Pennsylvania, they can't get a straight answer.
So now they have done it in all states. This is really interesting.
One of the 9 Pennsylvania suspects accused by the grand jury, a man accused of sexually molesting his daughter as a form of discipline when she was a child, killed himself when police sought to arrest him on rape and other charges in October. Charges remain pending against the other 8. The prospect that Pennsylvania's grand jury investigation may have uncovered secret church documents about how child sexual abuse matters have been handled has arisen, as some lawyers for those harmed years ago are hoping they may soon be able to file new cases. That depends on whether state lawmakers establish a special 2-year period to allow otherwise outdated child sexual abuse lawsuits. The church has faced multiple lawsuits around the country in the past 2 decades, alleging cover-ups of abuse. There's no doubt in my mind that a grand jury is fully needed, said Marcy Hamilton, chief executive of the Philadelphia-based advocacy group, Child USA. Barbara Anderson of Tennessee worked for a decade at the denomination's central offices in New York and spoke with investigators with the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office after calling for an investigation into the organization's handling of abuse. She said she was gratified to see the state taking action. Anderson was excommunicated from the church in 2002 after speaking out on the subject on a Dateline NBC broadcast.
She was disfellowshipped for doing exactly what we are talking about, bringing reproach on Jehovah's name by revealing the sins in the Watchtower organization. So it is not the person who committed the sin that is bringing reproach, it's the person who exposed it. And so she was disfellowshipped. No, I would like you to balance a Jehovah's Witness being disfellowshipped for exposing the sexual abuse of children. Reconcile that with what Stephen Letts said.
If anybody takes action against someone who would threaten our young ones and takes action to protect our young ones, it's Jehovah's organization.
Reconcile that with what Anthony Morris said.
It is clear that over the decades, protecting children from abuse is a top priority for this organization. We are proud of our reputation in this regard.
A 2016 governmental report in Australia, part of a wider review of religious and other organizations serving children, concluded that children were not adequately protected from the risk of child sexual abuse in the Jehovah's Witnesses. It found the church's case files in Australia contained abuse allegations against 1,006 members, dating back to 1950. Church spokesman Lopez said the Australia report unfairly conflated institutional and familial abuse in its criticism of the church and failed to note evolving legal standards for mandated reporting over the decades.
Well, this is a dream come true. Allow Lopez to talk about the Australian Royal Commission conflated things as much as he wants. I was so hoping that the focus would shift from Australia to the 50 states of the United States. And I'm so happy that the grand jury in Pennsylvania is investigating the Watchtower organization. I am so happy that the Associated Press is bringing it to the fore. I am so happy that Fox News has chosen to bring it as well, and that ABC News has, because this organization needs to be exposed. And I want to make the point again, ladies and gentlemen, that sinners are everywhere. I often make the statement that the church is not a museum of saints. It is a hospital for sinners. People come there with various weaknesses. People come there with various sins that they're struggling with. So it is not the fact that they have sinners that is the problem. It is the way they treat with the situation. The Watchtower's policy really does protect pedophiles. The Watchtower's two-witness rule policy really does add more abuse to the victims, and that for me is the very disturbing thing that needs to be exposed, and that the organization deserves to be punished for it until they change that policy.
May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.